Go for it.
Hello, everybody that's out there. Welcome back to episode 3. Here we are. You, of course, have your hosts here. Myself, Marcel Blake, owner of Phoenix Fitness and Athletics. And we have...
Got Brannely here. I guess I'm the author of eatlikeaman.com. I guess I'm or .net, not .com. I guess I'm the owner of that too. I haven't really ever grasped it like that. But yeah, I produce all the articles and I do all the writing and editing on my website, eatlikeaman.net. And I also run the Facebook page, Eat Like a Man, as well too. So
yeah, man, boost it out here, man. Boost it. Like I said, I brought Brannely in because his articles grabbed me and they were succinct and they were very well researched and thought out. So guys, if you're listening to this, please go find that eatlikeaman .net or his Facebook group, Eat Like a Man. I comment there as best I can. I try to boost them. I think it's great content. But
thanks, man.
No problem, man. I'm here for you.
I try.
Without further ado, guys, welcome again. We're going to always give our mission statement to anyone new or returning. And our purpose here with Generation RX is to combat the young adult obesity, to inform and educate the youth of the nation into what's available to better themselves now for their future. Look, guys and gals out there, whether you're a youth, a parent, an educator, other health professional, we are doing the best we can with the knowledge we have and the research we use, as well as our own experience. If you haven't gained that already from the first 2 episodes, we've got a pretty intimate history kind of figuring ourselves out, and also with helping other people around us, whether that's clients, friends, or family. So really the big purpose here is to just come together and create a better and healthier understanding so that the next rising generation, especially if you're a parent and you've got young kids like I do, Brannely, he's kind of working on it. Maybe take your time.
No, give it a couple of years.
Yeah,
no rush.
Take your time. But hey, we're here to boost each other and to help everybody out. All right. So without much left to kind of talk about the intro, we are going to jump right into it. Today's episode, as we said before, we're going to start talking about macronutrients. And specifically today, we're going to talk about protein, what it is, what we need to look for, and what we need to be aware of. And because I'm more of a jarhead and Brannely is literally the brain, we're going to let him intro and start this bad boy off. And then I'll interject when I have something Marine Corps crayon eating to say.
Awesome. Yeah. I think it's funny you say I'm the brain. I don't feel like I'm the brain sometimes, but I try my hardest. So yeah, going over protein today, one of the 3 macronutrients, like Marcel was saying. Some of you guys may not even know what macronutrients are, and so I think it's really important to kind of step out just to give a brief overview. If you have like different levels to nutrition in terms of like what your body is intaking whenever you eat food, I think the top tier is like calories. Calories are just a term for energy. It's the energy you get from food when you consume it. And then below that, you have the macronutrients, and there's 3 of them. So you have protein, carbs, and fats. And those kind of make up the bulk of your calories as well too. And then with below those, you get micronutrients. So that's like your vitamins, your minerals, everything like that. A little more specific. But like I said, protein is one of the 3 macronutrients. The other 2 are carbs and fats as well. So those will kind of make up the bulk of everything that you eat. What's interesting about protein is it has a couple of different things that it does in the body. But like per gram of protein, it's got 4 calories. So that if you're tracking calories or anything like that, 1 gram of protein is 4 calories. It's an easy kind of way to measure that. The main function of them, I kind of have 3 listed out, just real simple. But, the main thing that everybody knows protein for is to help repair damaged muscle tissue, specifically after exercise. So if you're lifting weights or doing cardio or anything like that, your muscle tissue will take some extent of damage, just depending on what you're doing. And then protein is really the building blocks to kind of help go in and repair that. It's actually one of the key things you need to build new muscle tissue. So that's why it's so important. There's 2 other things that it does as well. A little more specific, and they're not as well known, I would say, but they do help form enzymes in the body. So enzymes, they just kind of help your body carry out different chemical reactions within the body. So they're very important for that. And then they also are useful hormones that regulate metabolic activity as well. So the best way to look at proteins are like your building blocks. They're like your Legos pretty much. Um, yeah, Marcel, you got anything on that at all? Did I
Yeah,
cover
so
it all?
probably anyone listening to this right now, you probably just heard him say something like, wait, I'm gonna damage my muscles. I'm gonna hurt myself. So just to clear that up a little bit, one, Brannely did a fantastic job kind of really jumping into that. So guys, that like he was saying, the protein itself, and we're gonna go into like what the sources are. So when we damage muscle, that's just what naturally occurs when we work out, when we play sports, when we just play and run around. Like when we exercise and we push ourselves or we exert effort on the muscle, say if I'm doing bicep curls, okay, regardless of the weight, the more time I do this and every time I flex or contract a muscle, it causes little micro tears or little micro trauma, but not the bad kind. Okay. I know a lot of those are like very triggering words, may seem like very violent in a sense, but they're not. So when we exert ourselves and we cause those micro tears in the muscle, we have to remember that the more micro tears or the more muscle trauma we cause, and then utilize a macronutrient such as protein, even though we may be tearing or causing that trauma, quote unquote, when we utilize that building block that Brannely talked about, we are going to build and fill, essentially, we're just going to keep it really basic, fill that trauma up. We're going to repair it and build it in our recovery when we're not working out. So truly, guys, if we were to think about this like a percentile equation, just to cap it real quick and broad with brushstrokes, the work you do, say in the gym, is really only about 10% of your actual growth, or depending on what your goals are. The real growth and recovery that will happen will be in your recovery or in your rebuild phase when you're away from the gym or away from the field. Okay, so that's why it's so key to understand these next couple episodes that we're going to cover, because if you utilize the principles as well as the clean or whole food sources that we will discuss, guys, we're going to set your body up for so much success later in life, or even just right now with where you're at.
Yeah, I think a good way to look at it too, this kind of helped me realize like the whole process of breaking down muscle tissue and then rebuilding it. It's like if you get like a little cut on your skin and then a couple weeks later it kind of like closes up and there's a little bit of a scar there, and the scar is a little more pronounced than the rest of the skin there, and it's also a little bit stronger or a little bit tougher skin there as well too. That's kind of like what you're doing with your muscles in a sense. Whenever you work out with those little micro tears, you're just rebuilding them, and when you rebuild them, they come back a little bit bigger as well. And a little bit stronger. So that's a good way to look at it too. Next is kind of like the requirements for protein. So you're wondering like, okay, this is cool and all, like protein, this is what it does, you know, this is how many calories there is per gram. But like how much protein do you need to eat? This is something I had no idea in high school. And you know, it's still, there's a lot of debate around it, you know, and there's a lot of different recommendations based on what you're doing. And how active you are. So yeah, the requirements change. They change depending on your activity level. So how often you're working out, how often you're, you know, going to practice for sports, or just how often you're moving around in general. That's going to change how much protein you need. And then also like how much you weigh is also going to have an effect on how much protein you need as well too. That's a whole rabbit hole in and of itself in terms of weight and protein. But we'll just keep it really simple there. So the like actual, if you were to pull up, like just open up a textbook and read it, the recommendation is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. Now it sounds super complicated because it's in kilograms and we don't really measure things in that way here in America. But so if you weigh like 165 pounds, let's say you weigh 165, that's 60 grams of protein a day that you would need in terms of that calculation. Now I personally, I think that's a little low, especially if you're an athlete, just typically because like the more, like I said, if you're an athlete, you're going to be moving around more, you're exercising more. You're probably going to be lifting weights more as well too. Whenever you increase your activity like that, your protein requirements actually go up. So I like to use a different range for athletes. I typically like to see like 1.5 grams to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight. To keep that really simple though, we can switch it over to just 1 gram per pound of body weight. That's a really good way to look at it. So like me, I'm like 200 pounds. So 200 grams of protein is what I would need. And that's a really, really good way to just to kind of measure that and see how much you need from where you're at. It's really simple. And I think it'll get you in a good ballpark range. If you don't track protein or anything like that, or this is your first time ever looking into anything like that, that could sound like a lot of protein. Like I remember my high school coach told me at football practice one day, we were talking about protein, and he's like, "How much protein do you eat a day?" I was like, "I have no idea. I just drink my protein shake after I work out. That's all I know." Um, and he told me like 1 gram per pound of body weight, and I weighed about 180 at the time, and I was like, "You're insane. There's no way I can eat 180 grams of protein a day. That's impossible." Um, so yeah, we can kind of give you guys some tips on how to reach those numbers depending on what your weight is. It's actually a lot easier than you think, but for now, that's a really good thing to shoot for, just that 1 gram per pound of what you weigh. So, what do you normally see in terms of like what you would recommend, Marcel, for protein?
For the general populace and even like young adults, especially young athletes, really anyone, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Just that 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight is literally a really, really good rule of thumb across the board. You brought up a really good point that body weight or type really plays a factor into this. So being the trainer and a coach that I am, I've worked with a lot of deconditioned adults and even kids. And guys, when I say deconditioned, that means that you are either in the overweight or obese category. Decondition is just the scientific term that we use, or the professional industry term that we use. With that, when we look at gram per pound of body weight, and this again, we're not going to go too far down the rabbit hole with this, but when you're trying to factor your daily intake, and if we look at 1 gram per pound of body weight and say you weigh 260 pounds, but that's not your ideal weight. That is somebody that is severely overweight for either their age, for any age, really. Unless you're like a bodybuilding behemoth. All right, that's the exception here. You're eating 265 grams of protein for that person or that kid that weighs that much. That is unnecessary. That is not meeting the goal. And so what we then need to look at is, okay, not that I put a whole lot of weight into the whole BMI scale, and that's body mass index. And what guys and gals, what that means is what your ideal weight, quote unquote, would be per your age and height. Okay. Kind of like where you should be. It says that I should weigh no more than like, it was like 195 or like 190. And I was like, bro, I carry a whole lot more muscle mass and I'm a lot more active. So again, the BMI is, there's a large margin of error there, guys, and I'm not going to go too much more into that right now. But again, for that deconditioned person, telling that person to eat 260 grams a day, super unnecessary, and it's not going to meet the goals of weight loss. So what we would look at is, what's your ideal weight, or what is the goal weight that we need to chip at? Okay, you're 260. Realistically, let's just try to eat 200 grams or 220. Let's just be honest, especially if we're going to start increasing that activity, then it's going to be the smartest route to look at a plan and plan ahead to how active you will be. So in that point, I mean, we get a little more dialed in, especially like if you're looking to lose weight, I recommend you find a trainer or a local professional, someone that can really dial in and look at you specifically. But again, if you're an overweight person and you're looking at this and what we just said, hopefully what I just kind of mentioned helps you realize that, like, because even for me right now, like, I do eat 250 grams of protein a day, but I'm also in a phase where I'm cutting a lot of weight and I need to maintain my muscle mass. And that's a whole nother discussion to go into on another episode about dieting down or being in a deficit that is sustainable. But that's where I'll cap that whole off.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. I think that's important to note too. Like if you are really overweight and you're trying to lose weight, say like you're 260 pounds and you're trying to lose weight, it's definitely not ideal to be eating 260 grams of protein. And that's why I said it can be kind of like confusing whenever you're trying to figure out how much you need to eat per what you weigh. If that's the scenario you're in, I think kind of like what you hinted at is great. what's your ideal weight? Like, what do you want to get down to? And then just match it to that. So like if you're 260 and you want to get down to 180, just eat 180 grams of protein. I think that's a really great way to look at that. And it kind of like cuts out some of that confusion.
Well,
Now in terms of like
that too, but sorry to cut you up, but
oh yeah, you're good.
Brannely just said something really cool and it sparked me is if you're going to start changing your life around and introducing really healthy, good habits, and you're going to look at introducing healthy whole food sources and cutting out the junk, eating that 180 grams of protein a day, while may seem like a very big deficit, that's the point. To put yourself in a healthy deficit that's sustainable and to where you can drop to, and then now you've learned those habits and you're golden, pony boy. Let's just keep riding that horse. Okay.
Yeah.
So awesome. Let's roll.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, sustainability is also a huge thing. Now you guys like, what are some really good ways to get protein in? Like where do you normally get protein out of? Like what kind of foods are you looking for? Obviously the big ones would be meat. I think that's the first thing anybody thinks about. It's like whenever you think of protein, you think of like chicken, steak, things like that. A couple different areas you get protein as well too. Dairy is a really big one. The cool thing about dairy is that the protein that you get out of it is actually a very high quality protein. And we can kind of cover what makes something a good, like high quality protein. But dairy is actually a great source. So if you can actually like tolerate dairy, if you're not lactose intolerant or anything like that, it's a great place to go to for protein. If you are more lactose intolerant, definitely just kind of avoid it. Don't worry about it too much. You'll be fine with meat. You can get protein from nuts as well too. Nuts are like they're an okay source for protein. They're not my favorite if we're looking for just solely protein by itself, and then we can kind of go into that as well too. And then a couple of other ones that are more less animal based, more I guess you could say like vegetarian or vegan or whatever you want to go with. But soy is a good source. Tofu is a great source, and whole grains, they have decent protein in there as well too. Not a whole lot, but you can get some protein out of there. But yeah, and some sources are better than others. Just kind of based on protein quality, meat and dairy seem to have the best quality protein within them. So I mean, real quick, we can kind of go on a tangent. I've already said protein quality a couple of times. Let's kind of go over what makes a good quality protein. So amino acids, we'll dive into that a little bit. But that's typically something, if you really want to get super nerdy with it, that's what makes a good protein. But I'm going to try to explain it as simply as possible. If you look at like a protein molecule, think of like a chain, and a chain it's multiple chain links linked together. That's kind of like what amino acids are. They are the links that form the chain of protein. And there's a couple of different amounts of amino acids, but basically the more broad spectrum of amino acids you have and the more complete that chain is, the better quality protein it is. So that's like a really good way to look at it, is if you break protein down into amino acids. So like when you look at like dairy and meat or whatever, they usually have a way better like combination of amino acids with them. So that way our body, meets its requirements a lot easier with those products. It just uses that source of protein a lot better for things like rebuilding muscle and everything like that. You got anything to add on amino acids or anything like that at all?
Yeah. The easiest, I think I'm definitely picking up what you're saying, guys. That's why he's the brain. The biggest thing that I remember when I was coming up in the industry of talking about the amino acid chain, and what that also means is that there are foods out there that are what are called partial or impartial or partial proteins, which means that just like he was saying, like certain meats and certain dairies and other foods, they're good, but when they can be combined with another food, they make a complete protein that our body can process better because now it's combined with something. The easiest example that I use with people is granola and yogurt. Granola by itself, pretty decent, okay carbs, watch the sugars, but it does have some natural proteins to it. Yogurt's the same way. It's got its dairy, it's got protein, it's got fats and carbs, but it's considered an impartial protein. But when you combine those and you eat them together, that's why the yogurt parfait sells as well as it does. On top of that, usually they're super high in sugar, so it's going to give you a little bump. But
Very tasty.
but no, it's really good. And so yeah, those clean protein sources, those whole ones, guys, that we need to be looking at are mostly the animal based, guys. It's got the enzymes, it's got the amino acids in it that are very easily digestible just because of our ancestral background. I mean, regardless of where you came or where you currently live, guys, 50 plus years ago, all right, or even 80, let's just say 100 plus years ago, okay, someone was hunting and eating something, or it's coming straight from the butcher, all right? It wasn't going to a factory, it wasn't being wrapped up in saran wrap and put preservatives on. No, you were 9 times out of 10 wringing the chicken's neck, boiling it, doing it yourself, or you'd go down to the butcher and get your cut of meat for whatever, all right? So a lot of the food sources that we need to look at are a lot of like what I would call like that ancestral or that primal base, that thing that kind of takes us back to our roots, which is chicken, turkey, beef, whether it's the lean beef or just the normal. It doesn't really matter because the fats that we're getting, the extra fats that we're getting when we eat, say, red meat, they're the good kind, guys. It's not the one to stress about. It's the fats coming from, say, the tub of margarine that you need to be worried about. Okay, and that'll be 2 episodes from now, guys. So the red meat, lean beef, whole eggs or egg whites. And guys, if you're bacon's another good one. Just again, be careful about that. That is, of course, higher in fat. Not all pork is bad. Don't worry about it too much. And then if you're balling on a budget, guys, canned tuna and canned chicken. Okay.
Yep.
I know I just railed on the whole market and preservatives and this and that, but I'll tell you right now, guys, if you're out there and your family situation is this, or you're in college striking it on your own, canned tuna and canned chicken, man, there's 50 to 55 grams of protein in one of those large cans of chicken.
Mm-hmm. One thing I like too, a cool way to get more protein in is like fat-free dairy. I normally don't go fat-free because I'm not really scared of getting extra fat from dairy. The reason I go with fat-free with my dairy is because that fat's usually replaced with protein, so it has like a little bit of a higher protein count in it as well too. So if you see like fat-free cheese, it doesn't taste as good as a normal cheese, but if you're having a hard time getting protein in, you can throw some of that on top of whatever you're eating, and you can get another 8 to 12 grams of protein pretty easily. I like what you brought up with some food sources there as well too. I actually took some time to like list out different food sources from that and how much protein's in each. So starting out like with your meats, 6 ounces of meat, and this is on average, 6 ounces of steak, which is like a normal serving size of steak. If you were to like look at your hand here, like the palm of your hand, that's about 6 ounces. That's a great way to eyeball that. But for steak,
you're saying the palm, not palm and fingers.
I go palm and fingers, but I think that's just because I like to eat more food. But yeah, it's the palm, not the fingers included.
Okay.
Yeah. But when it comes to like with steak, 6 ounces of that has 34 grams of protein. So like if you're trying to hit like 120 grams of protein a day, you just have 6 ounces of steak 3 times a day and you're good to go. It's super simple. Chicken's a little bit higher. And this is chicken breast, not chicken thighs. Chicken thighs usually have a little more fat in there, so the protein content is lower. So chicken breast, 6 ounces of that will actually have 54 grams of protein. So 6 ounces of chicken breast 3 times a day is 150 grams of protein. It's actually really easy to hit those numbers. And once you look at it that way, that's also why we recommend meat, because it has a buttload of protein in it. For milk, I think I kind of use that for dairy as well too. 1 cup of milk has 8 grams of protein, so not super high. But there are other benefits to drinking milk. So if you like it, go ahead and throw it in there. We talked about whole wheats as being a protein source. Like I said, there's a little bit of protein in there, but nothing crazy. Like 1 slice of whole wheat bread has 5 grams of protein. So that's why I look at it as more of a carb than anything. For people who don't like to eat meat or animal products, 1/2 cup of tofu's got 10 grams of protein in it, and then 1 cup of soybeans has 29 grams of protein in there as well too. So there's some good ways to get more protein in, if you don't like to eat meat or anything like that. One thing that I do want to cover, and we talked about nuts a little bit for a protein source, and I kind of said I don't like them as a protein, as a way to get protein in. 1 cup of nuts has 27 grams of protein in there. So you're thinking like, wow, that's actually pretty good just for, almonds or whatever. But the amount of calories in there, 1 cup of nuts has 813 calories. And that's actually really high compared to what 6 ounces of chicken will have. And that's because nuts are very, very high in fat as well too. So whenever you are looking to like reduce calories, but also keep your protein high, that's important to look at. You actually want to go for protein sources that have a little less fat in there, just because fat will add more calories in. Which is why like I don't like nuts or like peanut butter as like a main protein source, just because they have so many calories. So it's really easy to overeat on that. And if you're overeating on calories to get more protein in, but you're trying to lose weight, you're just going to be spinning your wheels. So that's a really important thing to look at when you're considering that as well too. Even though I know Marcel likes his almonds from time to time.
Yeah. I mean, something to kind of address. We're not railing on fat food sources or food sources that have higher content of fats in them, such as peanut butter or nuts. But what we're trying to really prioritize in this episode, guys, is if you're trying to prioritize protein, then we need to look at the source that has the highest density or the volume of protein, and not just a food source that has a byproduct of protein. So like I love peanut butter and I like almonds, but those are higher in the clean source of fat that our body can utilize and clean out very easily. But again, if the priority is protein, then we need to look at the thing that has the most in it. And the peanut butter and the nuts, while yes, they have a byproduct or a smaller percentage of protein, it is not exactly something that can be used as the priority to intake that protein.
A really good example of like how that plays out. When I was in college, I was looking for like healthy snacks to keep around the dorm room because I was hungry all the time and dining hall was only open for lunch and dinner. So like in between, I would just be starving, so I needed something to eat. So I used to keep like a giant jar of honey roasted peanuts in my room because I thought they were a great protein source. And I think I would go through like a big jar, like a huge jar of honey roasted peanuts, like every 2 days. It was insane. I was eating them so like fast. But like nuts, they have a higher fat content, and when they're honey roasted, they have a way higher sugar content as well too. Yeah, I was like trying to lose weight at the time and trying to look for healthy snacks, and I was putting on weight because I was eating so many of these darn peanuts every single day. So that's just a really good example of how that plays out in the real world if you overeat it. So
yeah. Well, and guys, in 2 episodes, we'll jump into the fat thing and it'll make more sense. But for us to dive that right now, it'll make the episode twice as long.
Yeah. No, that's just like if you're looking for only protein, try to find the sources that have the most protein in them for the fewest calories, simply just for trying to make it work for everything else. But that's also important because if you're not tracking calories, and I'm assuming a lot of you guys aren't going to be, looking at things like meat and whatnot for your main source of protein is going to be a great way to go, just because they're going to be lower on that end, but still have a lot of really good protein in there as well too.
Right. I will say one more thing to cap off protein sources, guys. Especially if you're a young athlete or just active, there is nothing wrong with finding a protein powder that you like to utilize at least once a day right after your workout, either within 30 minutes to an hour of that workout window, or that window post-workout. Look for something that prioritizes the protein. So anywhere between 20 to 25 grams of protein. Make sure the sugars are low and the carbs are relatively moderate or low. And what I mean by that is, I've got 2 examples here. Let me look at them. All right, that one's got 3 grams of carbs and that one's got 9. All right, so to be honest, most of the proteins I take are more isolates. So the carbs are literally like 9 grams or less per serving, which is, to me, if I'm going to eat a carb, I prioritize like a whole food source. And again, that'll be the next episode, but at least over 20 grams of protein per your serving on protein powders, low sugars or no sugars if possible, and low carb, just to get your energy source from the food itself, guys.
Yeah. And a quick thing on protein as well too. I think protein powders are a great way to get extra protein into. Realize that those are a luxury though. Supplements are a luxury. If you're not meeting your needs with normal food and you're just having a super hard time, then they're a great thing to put in there. That's why they're called a supplement.
Oh,
But they cannot make up your entire diet either. Um, and there's a lot of misconceptions about protein out there as well too. They're literally just a way to get more protein in. And some of them digest a little bit quicker and they'll help out recovery after working out. But simply just adding a scoop of protein in every single day, just because if you're already getting enough protein, is not going to magically add on muscle to your frame as well too. Like I remember I used to go and shop for protein, and I would buy the one with like Rob Gronkowski on it because I thought that's what he would take to get huge. That's not how it works. They are super helpful. I use protein powder a lot as well too. But don't think there's some magic muscle building, serum that's going to add 15 pounds onto your frame in 2 months. If anybody's telling you that, they're just trying to sell you something. They're really just a nice convenience to have whenever you're low on protein and you need something really quick. So,
right. Awesome. Awesome, guys. And then just to tack all this off, guys, the reason and the ultimate thing that prioritizing a higher protein or just prioritizing the protein in your daily diet, three main big ones here is you're going to, like we already talked about, it's going to be optimal for your recovery and rebuilding and building for as you recover, and then building that muscle up, especially if you're active, especially if you're an athlete. On top of that, there's a natural enzyme within protein itself. Doesn't matter if it's a powder or a food source. When we take protein in, it's going to essentially mentally trick the body that it is full, or what's called satiated. So especially if you're trying to lose weight, and with the hundreds of clients that I've helped, like immediately I try to really help them, one, drink more water, get enough sleep, and three, prioritize the protein, just raising it a little bit week by week to where it can become sustainable. Because if I tell somebody to eat way too much protein out of the gate, the body's not ready. It's just not. So you have to creep into it. But by prioritizing the protein and getting to a sustainable level, your body will feel satiated in between your eating windows or when you choose to eat. So like Brannely went over, those 3 servings of chicken a day will equal those very basic moderate servings, to be honest, like those 4 ounces or whatever, 3 times a day or 4 times a day, whatever. That's actually very easy to do once you actually look at it. And on top of that, the protein has a higher, and Brannely did go over this, but just to recap it, protein burns more calories when it's digesting. It has what's called a higher thermic rate within the body. So what happens when we ingest it and it burns, and kind of because our bodies are little engines. Just to give you a hard fact number on it, is protein's thermic value or thermal value within the body rate per gram is 20 to 35%. Doesn't seem like a lot, but the thermic value or the thermal value of carbs and fats, or what we call lipids, is only 5 to 10% in the body. It's so really put that in perspective. That's why we need to prioritize the protein intake day to day and make that consistent per our goals or our training needs.
Yeah, I think a good way to look at that is like everything that happens within the body requires energy to be complete. So even digestion, when you're digesting your food, it's actually going to require a small amount of calories to digest that food. Now, because protein, it digests so much slower, and there is that higher thermic rate, so basically it requires more calories to digest protein than it does to burn or to digest carbs or fat. That's actually great because it's just a neat little way to burn a little extra calories at the end of the day. It's not the first thing we should focus on when consuming protein, but it is a nice factor. So a better way to look at that too is like if the thermic effect of protein is 20 to 35%, look at it this way: if you consume 100 calories worth of protein, your body is going to burn off 20 to 35% worth of those calories while digesting it. So even though you ate 100 calories, you're actually only going to be like receiving 80 to 65 calories from that once you subtract that thermic effect. So even though you ate 100, you're really only eating like 80 to 65. So that's just a cool way to look at that as well too.
Right. And that'll eventually segue to probably a discussion we have later of maybe my own personal opinion on why me personally, I'm not a fan of tracking calories. I think people can get that twisted. But that'll be a talk for another time.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Awesome. That's everything I got on protein, man. I think we hit a lot there, and I think there's going to be a lot to digest, literally and figuratively from what we just talked about. So,
pun intended, but not intended. Yeah, guys, we did our best within the research, and again, Brannely kills it with this. I'm super busy. I do the best I can to contribute to our notes. But I'm slammed with like 18-hour days between training groups. So like he is literally the brain and the backbone, and I'm just the muscle that is the bouncer at the door. So, but anyway, guys, we really tried to keep it to the wave tops. I hope you got a lot out of this. I did too, kind of going through a refresher and then thinking about ways to apply it to anyone that's out there. But again, reach out. And once we start posting these guys, like the comment sections are going to be open. You can reach out to us either through the Eat Like the Man Facebook page or his his website, or even my own on Instagram, phoenix.fit. That's phnx.fit, fit, or my Facebook page, Phoenix Fitness and Athletics.
Yep.
We're based here in the Midwest, guys. We're here to help.
Yeah. And Eat Like a Man, just eatlikeaman.net. And then Facebook, it's just Facebook groups, Eat Like a Man, pretty simple on that. Instagram, it is a little bit different. It's Eat Like a Man USA, just because Eat Like a Man was already taken. So it's Eat Like a Man USA there. And if you do go to the website, my first ever article on there was protein as well too. So if you really want to nerd out on it, I got some more on there as well. So, but yeah, no, I think this was awesome. I think we covered quite a bit. Protein is one of those ones you can talk about forever, and it can get super complicated. So hopefully we didn't complicate it too much, and I didn't ramble on too much about it. But yeah, it is one of the most important macronutrients, especially whenever you're worrying about body composition and building muscle and everything like that. So
protein, regardless of state of life, especially guys, just to tack in, if you're older, like if you're over 55, the reprioritization of protein needs to happen, because between 50 and 55, our bodies will start declining and the muscle will naturally just start deteriorating. That's why you start to see some of your grandparents just get smaller if they're not active or eating a balanced diet that prioritizes protein. Like that has been scientifically proven. So to stay ahead of the game and stay healthier, longer, faster, quicker, like guys, protein is king in life. Okay.
Yep.
Well, I've got nothing else, guys. Thank you again for joining in, and hope to have you join us next time.
Yeah. Peace out.